Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Scuttlebutt with Tim and Brock. Our guest today is Matt Cochrane. Matt served 6 years in the Navy as an electronics technician, reaching rank of E5 from 1996 to 2002. Following that, you became a patroller and then now a detective at the Plantation Police Department in Florida. You've written for the Motley Fool, writing on stocks and financial advice for them for 5 years, and now a lead advisor at 7 Investing. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thank you for being here.
So, Matt, I want to dive into your first early days, maybe even before you joined the Navy. What was going through your head? What brought you to join? Give us kind of the backstory as to why you decided to join the Navy.
Sure. Well, like I had a very blue collar raising. My parents were lower middle class, I would say. I mean, I had a great childhood. I'm definitely not trying to say anything there. 2 great parents, a roof over my head, always got fed, things like that. But like we didn't have like a lot of extra money as far as that went. And so when it came to college, they were always like, you're kind of on your own. You can live here, but we don't have any money to pay for you to go to college. And my dad had been in the Army during Vietnam. And so, he had talked to me about that, like being an option to get funding for college. And so somewhere during my illustrious high school career, I realized I wasn't going to get any athletic or academic scholarships. So at a certain point, that started sounding better and better, joining one of the services and getting college money that way.
I think that a lot of people had that initial bug in their ear, a family member, a parent, a relative kind of saying, hey, giving you that little push, like, hey, kind of subtly saying, we know you're not that smart and we know you're not that great at sports. So you better go do something to get that college paid for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, it just, there weren't too many options for me, and so like, and I needed it too. I didn't have any real drive. And, it's like, I was a stupid kid. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I did it. If I had stayed at home and gone to the community college, I would have gotten like some job flipping burgers. That didn't really appeal to me either. So it was kind of just like, you got to do something.
That's I think the exact story of Brock and I, except Brock and I both joined a little bit later. So you were 21, right, Brock?
Yeah, I was 21.
Yeah. So so we had, at least I know for me, I had tried the whole college thing, got to school and was like, this sucks. I'm not a school person. So very, very relatable. It sounds like you were just smart enough to recognize that about 3 years earlier than Brock and I.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's a low bar though. So, but no, honestly, like I just needed to do something. I didn't have any direction. I didn't like school. The thought of going to college wasn't that appealing to me anyways. And I didn't know what I was supposed to go for. Like, I had no idea what I wanted to do with life. And so almost like, I mean, in a way, like probably joining was kind of a way to punt on major decisions and just say, all right, go do this, try to get some direction or something out of it and see what comes of that.
Well, and it's funny too, when you sign up, you're like signing on the dotted line there. 4 years, or in your case, 6 years, seems like a really, really long time. But then once you're in, you get this feeling of, you don't have to kind of really make any big life decisions. And there's like a kind of a burden that's lifted off of your back when it's like, I don't have to decide what I'm doing with my life because the military is making that decision for me. It feels weird to think about that. And I don't wish that on myself again. I like being in control of my own future now. But I think when you're young, that's appealing.
I think so. I think you're right. There's 2 things you actually just said that I would like to touch on. The first one is like you're like sign on the dotted line. So so I thought I might go into the armed forces, and so you start going to the recruiters and they start recruiting you, and not much. I mean, like I was a really cheap date, but like the Navy recruiter would get me out of like the last period of high school and like buy Taco Bell, and I was like, oh, this is this is the greatest thing ever. I'm just going to get free Taco Bell, and I'll just go to all these meetings for potential recruits. And the only thing my mom said to me was like, don't sign anything, don't sign anything, don't sign anything. And so they had this thing called, I don't even know if they still have it, but it was the Delayed Entry Program, DEP. And
DEP. Yep.
Exactly. So I signed up for it, right? And my parents get this letter in the mail saying like, welcome to the Navy family. And they're like, what did you do? So, but yeah, like, to your point, I think there is a lot of it. Like the Navy says they'll take care of you, right? Like you have to do all these things, and you have to. You're given a lot of responsibilities, but you don't have to make life choices. You have a place to live. You can always go to the galley, and eat if you're broke. You can always you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. So they are in a way you do have to. They do take care of you in that sense. And when you're 18 or 19, like that's like, okay, like I know I'll be, somebody's here taking care of me to some extent.
Yeah. I think too, for one of the biggest ones, to kind of touch on what you said, when you are a younger kid, 18, 19, in my case, 21, especially when you first join, you're very much so like, okay, I'm at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. I leave work at 2:30 o'clock, like 2:30 in the afternoon. I have this much free time. And then I'll do it again on Tuesday. And so it's very, very structured. And then it kind of gives you that, it allows you to grow up and become an adult without really giving you too much freedom, which I think, at least for me, that's what I needed. Like that first kind of year and a half you're in, where it's so structured, it allows you to kind of figure out how to be on your own and be an adult. So I agree.
Yeah, through school and like through your school, whatever your school will be or whatever. Like I know it's different for different branches. Like my brother was in the airborne, so I think he had a very different experience than me. But like for the Navy, we got out of boot camp and you go to school, and I was at the school for a year, and it's like a very structured life, and you just kind of get used to it. So yeah, absolutely.
And were you 18 when you joined?
I was 18, but I turned 19 in boot camp. So I was
Okay.
like the September after I graduated high school. So
okay.
So yeah.
Well, and that's such an interesting dynamic too. Tim mentioned we were both a little bit older and had kind of like lived outside the home a little bit before joining, and kind of had some quote unquote life experience. What was going through your head at 19 when you're in boot camp, or going into school? How did that compare and contrast to like where you came from? Did you have kind of a structured household so it didn't seem too far off? You said your dad was military. I don't know, some people say they join and they grew up kind of in a boot camp household, almost like it's that structured. So I guess what was that experience like, and kind of learning about the world, like right out of joining?
I would say I came from a structured home life. So like I would say, that being said, I think I vastly underestimated boot camp. Like I remember, or basic training. Like I just remember going in like, they make you do push-ups and they make you run and you have to get up early, but whatever. It's not going to be a big deal. Like I really was just trying to say like, it's not a big deal, whatever. I remember like, I don't know, just a couple days into it, I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? But I needed that rude awakening. Like I was like really a stupid kid with no drive in life, and like I needed like that kick in the pants.
Yeah, that like second or third day with no sleep right there at the beginning, you're kind of starting to like, man, was this a good idea? I don't think that I like this very much. I don't like the way this guy's talking to me.
Yeah. And it's like 9 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever it is, and like at the time you're just like, that seems like forever. How am I going to get through? I can't do 9 weeks of this.
Right. I remember, I think I had the exact same mindset. When I joined, I was, in my own mind, the epitome of fitness. I mean, I lifted weights all the time. I had even like started running beforehand. And anybody that knows me, I don't run unless I'm being chased, and it better be something big chasing me, because I don't run. But I'd started running. In my head, I'm like, I am just this Spartan, like I can't be broken. And I remember the first morning everybody was cleared for, they medically cleared. So now they could finally like put you through the ringer. They wake us up at, it must have been 5 o'clock in the morning, and just kicked the crap out of us for like 2 hours. I had to go. I went to the bathroom afterwards to throw up, and I was just like, oh, I messed up. Like I'm not this like Greek god that I thought I was. These guys just kicked my ass with some push-ups. Like, this is nuts. You know what I mean?
I think everybody has that oh crap moment in boot camp.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah,
where you're just like, oh man. And there's going to be some former Marines or Army people listening to us, like listening to these like spoiled Navy guys like talk about how hard
We're
their
gonna
boot
get
camp
it.
was. Yeah. But no, absolutely. Yeah, you have that wake up call where you're like, oh my God, I bit off more than I can chew this time.
Yeah, you certainly do. And I definitely didn't think that I was some kind of peak physical performance, but I feel like my bigger change during that time period was just kind of mental. After like leaving home and being on my own for a while, I was just like, nobody can tell me what to do. I'm my own person. And the whole concept of like getting in trouble for other people's misdoings, that was like a really interesting foreign concept to me. I was like, why am I getting in trouble? Like, this wasn't me. I'm squared away. And now we're being punished for hours because somebody else's thing. But it ended up coming full circle by the end. I started to understand what that meant.
Sure.
So did you, I don't know how that process worked when you were in depth. When you were signing up, did they give you a choice on job? You said you're an electronics technician. Was that like they pulled it out of the Powerball lottery and that's just what you got? Is that something that you were interested in?
No,
What brought you to that?
Honestly, I forget. I think they had you, they make you take the ASVAB, which like I guess I did okay on it, and they were like, you should do this. And I was like, okay, that's what I should do then, and oh, you're good at math, I see, because of this test. So should go learn about electronics. And I was like, all right, I'll learn about electronics. But I think they push you into a certain thing, and you're just like, okay. The only thing I'm really glad about is like I didn't go to the submarine route, right? Like, so like they give you that pitch like that day in boot camp where they come and they tell you about how great it is to be a submariner or whatever. And you sign your life away to that, and you never see the sun again. So but yeah, like I think I just took it as that test and like, we need this and that's what you're good at, so you should do it. And I was like, okay.
I was very, very close to being an ET. Tim and I actually were both the aviation ATs. So, but I remember that being an option. And the only reason I didn't choose it was because it was a 6-year contract versus 4. So that's kind of a similar electronics background here. Where was your school at? And I guess, what was that like?
I did everything in Great Lakes. So I did boot camp in Great Lakes. My school was in Great Lakes. And then I had a C school, like a follow-up school in San Diego, which I was in San Diego for 4 months. And after the Great Lakes, like Great Lakes, Illinois. So it's right north of Chicago, if you're not familiar with it. But that's where I did boot camp. That's where I did my A school to become an electronics technician. It seemed like I was there forever. And then when I got to go to San Diego, I'm like, San Diego is the best city in the world. I still think that. Like, I still love my time in San Diego. And that was my only time I spent in San Diego in the Navy, but I loved it.
Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful down there. And then did they kick you right to Guam? You mentioned before this that you did a couple of years in Guam. Was that immediately following school?
Yeah. So after San Diego, I did my by this time I'd been in like a good year and a half. Like it was coming up on 2 years, I think. And like I did the next 2 years on Guam at the NICTAM space there, the Naval Communication, the Naval Computer and Telecommunication Station, I think is what it was. But I did 2 years on Guam, which like my preconceived notions of like if you tell a 20-year-old they're going to Guam and like what I thought that was going to be like to what it was like was also like, wow, like what a stupid naive kid I was. I really thought I was. I mean, I was 20 and I didn't know anything about the world, but I just thought it was going to be like some huts and some like, it's just going to be like, I don't know, it's like some island in the middle of the Pacific. And then, but yeah, it was like a city. It was like regular, it was, but just that alone was eye-opening. It's the first time I'd been out of the country.
Yeah.
I guess oh, go ahead.
No, you're
Go ahead,
fine.
Brian.
Go.
I was gonna say I have a couple friends that are still in, and because of social media, I know that they're stationed in Guam, and so they're constantly posting pictures. And one of them's like super into like snorkeling now and that kind of thing. So just seeing his pictures, a buddy of mine, just seeing his pictures, it's kind of the same thing. You know, I've never been there. I really had never seen pictures of it, so I don't know what I was expecting, but just seeing his pictures, even today, I was like, oh, that is not what I had imagined it to be. Um, do you think that going to Guam was beneficial for you, like being that young, being able to travel, or were you kind of bummed out having to leave the country?
So I actually, one of the reasons in my head, one of the reasons I wanted to join was to travel. And actually that's one of the main reasons I picked the Navy. Was like I thought I would travel the most in the Navy. And so I was actually kind of bummed. Like, I wanted to travel, but like Guam was not like at the top of my list. But in reality, I mean, I think I was fortunate because like it was kind of like it was more like it was closer to a 9 to 5 job than like going on a ship. I mean, like going on a ship, I mean, your life is just, it just sucks. Like as far as
Brock
I'm
knows all
You
about that.
You can say it. It sucks.
so like so, and I did my time on the ship, but like in Guam it was more 9 to 5, like and so like I kind of started thinking like you just almost start treating it like a regular job. I mean, like it's more structured. Don't get me wrong. I lived in a barracks. It was more structured than a 9 to 5. You had there were nights during the week you were on duty and had you had to sleep at a bunk at the communication station in case something broke and you had to fix it in the middle of the night. So there's things like that. But like again, much more. You could take college classes like on the at night, like they would offer it there on base, things like that. It was actually pretty good. So a lot of family guys. So I was stationed there with a lot of family guys, and they loved it on Guam because you're in the Navy. Ship life is horrible for families. And so that they get to Guam where it's like this 9 to 5. You go home every night to your family, and it's like it's great. So I think it was great for the married guys there, the family guys. I was just a single idiot at the time, but yeah, I mean, it was kind of compared to compared to ship life, it was pretty easy.
And that was your Guam. You went shore duty first. I assume Guam was a shore duty for you.
So it actually, because it was like, I forget the exact designation, but it counted as far as a seashore rotation. It counted as sea.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, it was like a little scam.
I think because it's Oconus.
Yeah, I wonder if it's maybe because it's like out of country or something like that. It counts as a sea duty.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder.
Yeah, but like so people would try to like extend their time. Like so, I was there for 2 years, right? And it's a normal Navy guys went there for 2 years, and all my married friends would try to extend it for a year or 2 years as much as they could, and you'd put your reasons why, and they finally figured out the captain we had at the time was like sympathetic. If you were like, I need to get my college degree, so I'm going to take these college classes. Well, why do you need to get a college degree? Because I want to be a captain one day. I want to be an officer. And so the captain would extend everybody who said that. So everybody learned that like you just go, you say you take college classes, say you're taking college classes to become an officer, so you can be a captain one day, and they would extend your time. So
you've heard of the American dream. This is the Navy dream. The seaman
something like that. Yeah, I don't know, but something like that. So, I mean, I didn't do that. I was just there for 2 years and I left. But I mean, I enjoyed my time there. I made some really good friends. Like some of my closest friends in the Navy were from that time. It was a good time.
You mentioned earlier that you were a single guy in Guam, and you're now married to your high school sweetheart. Do you want to kind of dive into what being a young single bachelor is in Guam? What does that look like?
Well, it's a young poor guy, young poor single guy. That's a better description. So like, I mean, really like, so my wife and I had a very off and on long distance relationship during my time in the Navy. We were high school sweethearts. We broke up several times throughout our relationship, throughout my time in the Navy. But when I was single there, like it was, I didn't have a car. And so like the city life was like far away, right? So you either had to get someone with a car to go into the city life, but like it was actually expensive because it was like Guam is like a Japanese tourist destination. So if you go into town, it's all very touristy, very high price stuff. So like that, for a Navy guy, that it was very pricey to go into town. And then you had the on base stuff. So you had your enlisted club or whatever like that. But there was not much for your love life there. So let's just put it that way.
Especially early on, you're not getting any sort of like BAH or like any sort of allowances or anything like that. I mean, so
I don't know what my salary was in '99 in the Navy, but as an E4, but it was not much.
$1,000
400 or 500
or something.
Yeah. Oh, I bet it wasn't even that much.
Oh, really? I don't know.
I couldn't tell you, but it wasn't much. I do know that.
Not enough to be going to town regularly. I think as you progress over time, you start to see, you're like, man, how did I ever survive on that little of money? Even as just a single person. I think looking back on some of my time, I think every single dollar that I owned at any point just went to beer.
Oh yeah. I remember when I was in it was the same thing. I was a single dude. Brock, you and I were just tearing it up every weekend. We had like a financial advisor come to my squadron, and she was doing everybody's like monthly budgets, and they were really focusing on the E4 and below, because those were the ones that were, really struggling. And so like I sit down and she's like, hey, how much do you spend on this? How much do you spend on this? And she's like, okay, you're negative $400 a month. Where can we like make some cuts? She said, I remember she's like, I see here that you average about $500 a month on going out between bars and food. Do you think you could cut that down? And I was like, nah, I don't need internet or like a phone bill, but we got to keep that budget where it's at. So yeah, that's funny. That every dollar going to beer, I think when you're especially joining at 21, where you can go out and drink out on town and kind of do the stuff that maybe somebody like yourself who joined at 18, 19, you weren't really able to do that for a few years. That I think was but there was pros and cons to both for sure.
So did you guys, I signed up for a scam when I was in the Navy, this like financial scam, like where you like start sending like part of your paycheck to this guy, because like I had like Brock, I don't know if you ever heard me talk about, but like I knew nothing about money when I was in the Navy, like nothing. Like I didn't know how to write a check. Like my granddad like sent me a check once and I didn't even know how to deposit it. Like I was like a walking financial disaster. And I spent all my money. Like I usually the first week after I got my paycheck, I would have money to go out and do everything. And then the second week I was just eating at the galley three times a day, which wasn't that bad, but you'd still complain about it. But like, and I would just be at the base and like doing whatever I could around the base. Like when I was talking to my my now wife and my then girlfriend, like if we were together, like the long distance, this is before cell phones, so the long distance rates from Guam to back home were like outrageous. You just pay through the nose, it was like a car payment every month, but just things like that. It was ridiculous.
That's really ironic that you got into this financial scam, but now have kind of like become to be this financial savant, I guess, if you will.
If you ever talk to my wife, like she'll be like, people who knew you back then, like, what do they think now? Because they think like this hasn't been like she's like, you could have told me you're going to do anything in the world. It's like investing stuff and in stocks and anything with finances, like would have been the last thing in the world I would have ever picked. But
yeah, I want to get to that in a little bit and talk about kind of your progression through that. Want to dive into it. You were telling us before we got going an interesting story about you and your wife and how you had written her a letter when you had gotten to the boat, or kind of changing your mind or kind of asking for her back or something. You want to kind of get into that? You were talking about being single in Guam. And
well, first of all, it's a ship, not a boat. Come on.
Okay, a ship.
So like, yeah, so I left Guam and like I had been engaged and like it ended bad. We broke up and we didn't talk for like a long time. And I go to the USS Carter Hall. So this was early 2001. And so we were doing it. I got there just as we were leaving for a med tour. So tour of the Mediterranean. And so we were doing the Mediterranean tour. Everything was going great through the summer. We'd visit the ports. It was like, this is like the travel. Like I'd signed up for the Navy to be, now seeing like Italy and Turkey and Spain and Greece and, Sicily and, all these places along the France, like all along the Mediterranean coast. And I was finally like getting to do what I really wanted to do. And I was loving it. And then of course 9/11 happens. And so, I knew they're about to, I remember thinking like they're about to shut down communications on the ship. So I sent out a quick email to all my family and friends saying like, I'm okay. I know what's going on. I love all of you. And I got like, for the first time, like this, I've been in the Navy 5 years now, but for the first time, it was kind of like, it's weird because it was kind of like hitting me like, oh man, this is a real job. Because like, remember, like, this is like the 90s was the time after the Cold War, right? So like the Cold War was basically over, before 9/11, we had already done Desert Storm, but like we thought that was kind of over. So it was really like I just kind of thought like I'm in the Navy during a great time. I'm not going to have to go to battle or anything like that. I just treated it like a job. And then so 9/11 happened, and like you have this oh crap moment, like oh this is going to get real. And so I was like very like I guess emotional. I don't know if that's the right word, but just very like wow, just like this is real. And so I wrote my wife a very long letter saying like, I still have feelings for you. We haven't talked in so long, but like, when I think about like what I want to do in my life, like I know I want to be with you, and very sappy. Sure, it was very sappy. I would not want to read this now.
Sure.
We're gonna read that on the air, Matt.
Yeah. I have it right here actually on my computer.
We've spoken with your wife. We're here to expose you.
So like, and if you're in the Navy, or any armed forces, when you're deployed, like it's sending a letter back home. So at this point, email, everything was cut off. There's no communication, and I was writing a letter where you can't like put any information about where you are or anything like that. But like it took like months to get to her is what I'm trying to say. Like so like I wrote this thing, and you don't hear from her for months, and then so like months later I got a letter from her, and it was like the same, like I still have feelings for you too, blah blah blah, another sappy letter, and then and from there it was history. But yeah, that's how we got together for good.
I think one of the most interesting dynamics about the military is, especially going to, like you said, there's all the family guys at Guam, and everybody's kind of just doing like a kind of an extended 9 to 5. You're working, you come home every night. It's kind of just this normal way of life almost. And then there's almost just this moment that everything kind of changes in your head about like, oh, wow, like I'm on the front lines of this. And especially, I can't even imagine being kind of deployed at the time when we get an attack on American soil. I can't imagine what that must have felt like at that time. Kind of a wake up call, or did you have that kind of feeling at all? Your feelings about what your job was and what you were doing, did that change when that happened?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I more than that, I think it was like at that time, like I don't know how old you guys were when this happened, but like it was really like it was the first time in life where it was like this was like the biggest. This was like I grew up in the 80s, but I was still a kid when like things like the Berlin Wall came down. So it doesn't resonate with you like it should have, like the historical significance of things like that. This was the first thing in my life where I'm like this is like a big serious thing. And like back home, like my wife was a first year school teacher at this time. She had just graduated college. And was teaching class. And at this time, like at the time they were finding letters with anthrax in it, and they thought it was the terrorists were doing this, and they thought there were more attacks. Everybody was like, there's more attacks coming, apartment complexes are going to be blown up. I mean, so it was just everybody was like paranoid, like what's next, everybody was waiting for what's next. And so I was actually worried about her because she taught at a school, and I'm just like, oh, the schools are going to be attacked. And things like that. I think I think just everybody. I don't know what I'm trying to say is I don't know if that's unique to me. Like I think everybody at that time was like, this is like what's going to happen next. And then thank God, I mean, not too much else happened on American soil after that, but like people were bracing for like a lot more to happen.
Yeah. I didn't answer. I was in 3rd grade when 9/11 happened. Brock, were you 4th grade?
I think third or fourth. Yeah.
Third or fourth. Okay. And I remember I lived in New York at the time, upstate New York. That's where I'm born and raised from. And I remember clear as day being in third grade and the school kind of like going into this lockdown pretty early in the morning. And then they had brought a TV into my classroom and we were like watching the news. And I think about it now and I'm like, man, they were like showing these third graders. I have a third grader. My daughter's in third grade. And so it's hard for me to imagine her school now showing something like that on the news. Right.
Sure. Oh yeah.
And I being in New York, it was, I think, especially scary for myself and my family because I lived about 6 hours away from New York City. So I wasn't like down the road from it, but it was still like very close to home. And so they had sent us home for the day. And I remember getting home and it was on the TV as soon as I walked in. Both my parents were there, which was weird because, my dad should have been at work and whatever else. But I remember being in third grade and just thinking to myself, like, oh, we're going to war. Like this is, and I for some reason had this image of, there's a scene, I think in the beginning of a Peter Pan movie where, London or England or something's getting bombed. And that's all I could think of. That's like what I could relate it to was this like children's movie, like that's coming here and just being like super scared. And luckily that, like you said, that was kind of the last of it. But yeah, I remember everybody was freaking out that there was going to be more. And yeah, that was a scary time for sure.
Yeah.
Even for somebody, I couldn't wrap my head around it at the time, but I remember as best I could wrap my head around it being very freaked out because it was so close to home.
Yeah, that's like I said, I have a hard time understanding what that feeling must have felt like at that time. I know that there were your time out on the ship. I don't know if this was a similar feeling that you might have had, but I remember going out on the ship for the first time, or the boat, whichever is it. We always called it the boat, but whatever, the ship. I think that on my deployment that I went on in 2017, there was something that kind of clicked in my head that was like, this is real. It's not just this normal thing. It's not pretend. There are planes leaving this boat every day to go carry out like our country's mission, and coming back with an empty bomb rack is you realize that it just is, it's real. I don't really know how to put that, but it's an interesting kind of wake up call for people, and I think that everybody who's served at one point or another has experienced.
Well, Brock, you were on your deployment in 2017. That was the deployment where they had like set the record for like bombing Syria, right?
I think that I think every deployment sets another record, to be frank. Single, I don't know what it is, but every single boat, when they come back, they are like, we set the record for the most ordnance dropped. Like, I don't know, either there is no record or people are just making that up, or people want the title, or I don't know what it is, but
yeah, setting the record is kind of like a weird term. Like we set the record for the most ordnance dropped, but that's like the best way that I could, I guess, describe it. There was also something else weird that happened that I'm sure correlated to that feeling. Wasn't it like the first dog fight? Like an air-to-air dogfight that was the first one in like an X amount of years or something like that, where we as the Americans, one of the pilots on your ship and an F-18 had shot down a Syrian pilot.
Yeah, that actually did happen. That was VFA 87. I think they shot down a Syrian fighter jet, which was the first like aerial takedown in some stupid amount of years, like 20 or 30 years or something like that. So that was an interesting thing, a cool thing to be a part of, I guess, in some sense, that whole wake up deal. That was a cool experience. Kind of to circle back to that letter, Matt, I guess to kind of offer some maybe advice, or that letter that you wrote to your now wife. We're really kind of pulling the ship back around here. What kind of advice would you have, I guess, for maybe somebody that's currently in, or a military family or whatnot, for how to kind of create a successful relationship? You've been married now for some time. you know something about it and how to create a successful marriage. What would you offer as somebody in maybe a similar position? What kind of advice would you give?
For someone in the military or just in general, or
Both.
Yeah.
all right. Well, I mean, if you're in the military, I mean, it's different. I think it's a little different now. I think technology helps, like just as far as communicating like goes. Like I said, like back then, I remember trying to like call my wife, which at the time girlfriend, like call her like just like as much as I could, but it was like you'd have to go to like when I was on Guam, we had a phone in our room, but like if it's on another base, like Norfolk or something, when I was on the ship, like you have to go to like these huge banks of payphones they had. You have to buy your AT&T prepaid card. So I think like nowadays, you can log on to message via WhatsApp, or even have a video call if you have a good enough Wi-Fi, or it's just so much easier to communicate now than it used to be. So, but like I think that's probably the key right there, right? Is communication, like having a very open and honest communication lines open between you and your significant other. But like I need marriage advice as much as the next guy. So like I don't know how much I should be dishing out here, but like
That's
yeah,
funny.
I think communicating is obviously pretty important.
I definitely, as somebody who, I know we were talking about it a little bit, I had done long distance with my wife, who was my girlfriend for a couple of years. She was across the country. She lived in Idaho. I was stationed in Virginia. And you're absolutely right on that part. Like times are so different. The ability for me to have the ability to FaceTime her or text her, throughout the day, or whatever, that definitely makes the world a difference. And on the ship, even like it's even different on the ship now, because like you said, there's a lot of times where they would shut down communications and you'd have to kind of resort to snail mail. So you're talking like months in between letters. Whereas even when I was in, and Brock and we would go out to the ship together, I could send an email that would show up as a text message on her phone, so she could respond on her phone as a text message, but then it would come to my ship's email. Or you have, if I was done with work and I was able to log on to, and I could finally get on a computer for 20-30 minutes, I could on Facebook Messenger, like go back and forth and Facebook message my wife. And, so yeah, it definitely, I think you're really onto something there, that, yeah, it's just the communication aspect of it, but it is significantly easier nowadays than it was even back when you were in, which I'm sure doesn't even seem that long. But then I think about my grandfather was in the Army. He passed away when I was a baby, but my dad had come across a bunch of letters that he had sent to my grandmother. And my grandfather was in like World War II, Korea. He was a Army colonel. And it was just reading these letters is pretty eye-opening, because it's just time is like the times have changed so much. And it was like a true like love notes. When he would write her, he'd be, my dearest Margaret, or whatever. And it just times are so different now. You're able to communicate instantly, whereas even back when you were in, a lot of times it was just snail mail.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about like, I mean, my dad was in Vietnam, and we had his funeral last year, and just going through his old letters, like back home, like when he was stationed in Vietnam. But like, back, like, I mean, look, I had it pretty good in the service, but like, you think about like back then, like people serving during World War II or the Korean War or Vietnam, or whatever, they might not see their significant other for years. And,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I had that that oh crap moment, like when 9/11 happened. But just imagine if you're in a war, you can die any day, and so that kind of brings it out of you. It's easy to be very
yeah, absolutely.
very like I don't know the right word, but skeptical or cynical about romance and things like that when during normal times. But like when you think you might die, you're going to express your feelings. And yeah, no,
leave it all on the table, if you will.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
That's pretty
Yeah.
cool about your granddad.
Yeah, it's I remember standing in my garage reading those, and this was years ago, but it just was like, and my grandfather died, I said when I was a baby, but my grandfather died when I was like 3, and I very, very vaguely remember him, but the little bit that I do remember about him is he was a very like just a stoic dude. He was very quiet. So I remember being like very kind of blown away reading these letters because they really were just like so loving and so emotional. Yeah, it was a cool thing to see for sure.
Yeah, that is cool. That is cool.
That sense of like life being short really makes you want to kind of, that whole carpe diem, seize the day, you don't want anything untold. You need it all out on the table. When it come to your family, did that influence your decision on getting out at all? Was that something that was on the table?
Yeah. So I remember this. So like I was on the USS Carter Hall. We got back from. So another thing, real quick. So we got. You're talking about setting records and stuff, like all the ships setting records. So I actually like.
Did your ship set a record?
We didn't, but this is the time I got lucky. So like again, how I mean, I just got lucky a lot, like in the service. But like we were already over there when 9/11 happened. So immediately we were off the coast of Italy. We go over towards the Middle East in that area. But the next carrier group was already getting ready to come over to do their med tour. So the next carrier group, basically 9/11 happens and they go and they relieve us. So we had to extend our tour by like 2 months, out in the sea. But that group that relieved us, that was the group that was there for like 15 months, just cutting squares in the Persian Gulf, and like, we had almost an entirely normal Mediterranean tour. Just the last 2 months, we were no more port stops and things like that. And we were out there like getting ready for the next carrier group. We didn't do anything, like we didn't drop any bombs. We didn't do any of that. Still before the war really took off in Afghanistan, and definitely before Iraq. And then the next carrier group, like I said, they get there and they're there for like 15 months, and they were there forever, and no port stops, no nothing. So anyways, we get back. Our ship was scheduled for a dry dock. So we did all that, which means like, they take it out of the water, they do all these repairs on it. Like I was on it for that. And then like late 2002 is like when I got out. Like I joined in September and I did 6 years, but they added 3 months at some point for something. So I get off.
Just snuck it in there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I get off in December, and I got married in December, like that year, like a couple weeks after I got out. But like I remember they come, they tell you like, well, if you at that time I forget how many more years of sea duty I had to do if I re-enlisted, but they said like, you finish this time, and like we're like, the senior chief on my ship was like, I'm the best at getting people where they want, so just tell me where you want to go, I'm gonna get you there, blah blah blah. Like it's like I was like, well, and I was thinking like, all right, if I re-enlist. At that time they were giving bonuses for ETs if you re-enlist, so which I mean it was like $20,000, but when you're like at that time I'm like, that's like I won the lottery. Like $20,000 I could buy a car, But so I was like thinking like, oh, I could go to the Keys or Port Canaveral. Like I was thinking I wanted to come home. I knew I wanted to get married and things like that. But they're, well, I was like, so you're going to guarantee you get me where I want? Well, we don't guarantee it, but don't worry. I'm the best. I'll get you there. So
just sign here and we'll get you there.
Exactly. So as soon as they said that, I was like, no, that's all right. I'll take my discharge and go home and get married. So that's what I did. But yeah, and like, I honestly, I think if I had not been with my, getting ready to get married at that time, like I would have re-enlisted. But like, you've seen it, you saw it too many times, where like it was just hell on married life, being in the Navy, being on a ship, like that kind of thing. I remember once we were doing these exercises off the coast of Virginia, like 2 miles off the coast. You could see the coast, you could see the shoreline, and they were doing helicopters back and forth because we're doing like, supply runs, and like it was like part of the drills and everything. And my immediate supervisor, my ET1, his wife was giving birth to his first son, and he put in a special request to go home on one of these helicopters that was already going there anyway, to see the birth of his son. And of course they said no, like we need you on the ship. So he missed the birth of his son, for what, you know what I mean? So just see, you see enough things like that in the Navy, and you're like, okay, like it can be, there's a lot of great things about being in the military when you're single, But like for married life, it looked, and I know people do it, and God bless them. But like for me, I was like, I'm not going to do that for, like if I'm going to go have a family and get married and settle down, like I don't need to still be in.
Yeah. Well, and I never really fully understood that when, like you said, you have your senior chief or some kind of senior enlisted that's sitting there trying to talk you into staying in and talking about how great the Navy is or just the military in general. And you're like, well, I maybe I want to get out for family reasons or want to get out for personal reasons. And, this, that, and it just becomes like excuses. And you look at their past history and they're on their third marriage. They don't have a good relationship with their kids. Like, and I don't say that as like a derogatory thing. It's like, no, the military is just hard on your family.
It's a hard life. It's a hard
There's
life.
no way around that.
It's a hard life, no doubt about it. It's a very hard life, especially especially for if you have a family. It's very hard on a family life, no doubt.
Now, obviously, since you got out, you've become very successful in the things that you did, that you've been doing. Your detective. You are, what is, a lead with 7 Investing?
I'm a detective down in South Florida, and I'm a lead advisor at 7 Investing. And I'm
Lead
glad you said
advisor.
very successful. So I'll take that.
My question.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Very successful.
Being a being a detective is nothing to sneeze at by any means. Now, when you were getting out, was there any sort of like senior enlisted or officers that were kind of like, hey, we know you, and the military is probably the best thing for you. I don't know how successful you're going to be getting out. Did you ever have anything like that?
No, I'll tell you what it was. I wouldn't. Nobody told me like, oh, you should definitely not get out or don't do that. I would say there's like a general fear, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. When you come in and you're 18, 19, 20, and you come into the military, and they're like, and you're a stupid kid. I mean, I was a stupid kid, no drive in life, no nothing. And there's that sense like, okay, well, I'm being taken care of now. I don't have to make major decisions. The Navy will tell me when to be at work. The Navy will tell me where I'm going to travel to. The Navy's going to tell me everything to do. They're going to tell me what to wear, to work. They're going to tell me like what, curfew. I mean, it's a very structured life, right? Even like in Guam, where it was, like I said, it was closer to 9 to 5 than like ship life. It was still very structured. It was not, I don't mean to give the impression it was just a regular 9 to 5 job. And, after that, it was nothing. Like, it's a very structured life, and they take care of you. And even if you're married on Guam, you live in base housing. So they tell you where to live, and they tell you like, here, you can always come here to eat, and they give you health insurance. You just go to the corpsman if you're feeling sick. They take care of everything. And so getting out, it is, you have that moment where you're like, well, what do I do? Like, I don't, who's going to tell me where to work? Who's going to tell me what to wear? Who's going to tell me, like, who, all these things you start, I think there's a general anxiety. And I do think a lot of people stay in, not everybody stays in, but just some people stay in because of that. You just have that general anxiety coming out. Like, what do I do now? Like, who's going to, like you just get nervous. I think that's very human though, to get that feeling. And I think that was like, I would say that's pretty prevalent, or was at the time anyway. Like, a lot of people are like, "Whoa, are you nervous you're going to get a job? Are you nervous this?" Things like that.
Yeah, no, I think that you're spot on.
Did that fear that you're kind of talking about, did that kind of lead you to join the police force, or did that kind of at least influence your decision? Because obviously the police force isn't structured like the military is, but I'm guessing that there are a lot of elements that are similar.
Yeah. So this is what I'll say. I get out, and like I took this job selling construction aggregates or something like that. All right. And like what I figured out, like coming out of the Navy, like, I mean, I learned a very valuable skill as an electronics technician. I understood the basics. I mean, I was not like like the greatest technician ever, but I could fix like my kind of, the equipment they put me in charge of. I could fix them, whatever. But I also knew I didn't want to do that. Like, it wasn't my thing. It wasn't my calling. I didn't love it. And I didn't want to do that for the rest of my life. But, and coming out, I'm like, okay, well, now I'm just going to go get a a quote unquote regular job, like it's still not knowing like what I really wanted to do, like I had been in the Navy 6 years and I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. But I did. The difference was like going into the Navy, like, I mean, like, man, like so many times I think back to your high school life and like how stupid I was and wouldn't do homework and just get bad grades and suffer for that. And like coming out of it, like, I started going to college and it was like everything was easy after the military. Like you just never had to work that hard again. So like after you go through the military, you just never have to work that hard again. So everything just seemed easy, everything like putting in extra effort, putting in like your college classes and having to study for a test or or do a paper or just anything like that. Everything was just so much easier after the Navy. And so I took this job and I realized I was not meant to work in an office. Like I just like it was not for me. Like doing drudgery paperwork or talking to people and trying to make sales, like it was just all right. So I learned that about myself. And when I first got out, like my cousin's husband was a sergeant at this police department, and he goes, "Oh, you should come here. We're hiring, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, the last thing I want to do is go work at a place where I have to wear a uniform. Like, I don't want to have to shave. I don't want any of these things. I'm done with all that. Right. I'm just done. And, but I realized like I hated office work. Like I said, a year into that job, I just hated it. I hated going in every day. I hated everything about it. And so like just being like when I became a police officer, it was just me, right? Like you can drive around and it's different every single night. Some nights are slow, some nights are busy, some nights there's an emergency, some nights there's not. But like I got to help people, like there's a sense of fulfillment from that and a sense of mission. And so like I found the job very fulfilling, and it just suited me. Like I wasn't in an office, I wasn't trying to sell people things, like construction aggregates, like which was I know nothing about, it was just a much it just suited me is what I found out.
Yeah, I think that higher calling really resonates with people, and even if you don't go on to some kind of public service like that, a lot of people that are prior service talk about that sense of working for something greater, and like that's what's really fulfilling, and kind of doing it on your own terms helps,
And you
when you're making a decision.
Absolutely, it does not have to be public service. Like I mean, like I find just as much fulfillment at Seven Investing, and like I think any job where you can find fulfillment is great. And I think that there's lots of jobs out there. It does not have to be like I am not one of those guys. You have to be in the like a first responder or work at a hospital. No, like find a job where it is fulfilling for you, and like you are helping people. There's a million jobs out there like that, and I think that's what you're passionate about is what you'll be good at.
Do you think that, or what is it that you think? How do you think people should go about finding that? Is it just a trial and error thing? Is that what it was for you, or was there a way, something that you knew about yourself that kind of led you to pursuing that? Because I think there is that thing everybody in the last year of the military, I'm assuming it's the same for other branches too. They talk about what's your plan, have a plan. What are you going to do? Are you going to school? Do you have a job lined up? Like they're asking those types of questions. But a lot of times when you aren't being told what to do anymore, you realize that you truly can do anything. And the amount of options that you have and the amount of control that you have back in your life is almost overwhelming. What would your advice be for somebody that's maybe in that position about they're looking for that next thing, or they're exiting service, maybe they're about to leave the service or they want to, but they are scared because they don't know what that thing is? What would your advice be for somebody in that position?
Oh, that's a good question. That's probably a deep question. Like what I would say is this is like just keep working like with the opportunities you're presented with, and lean into your passions. And like that's kind of like how I've found everything in life, and like you have to work, like don't not work. Go get a job and like pursue jobs that you want to, in something like you feel like you want to do. But like pursue the opportunities that come before you. And then when you're there, lean into your passions there. And then, we're coming into a world where, and I think it's a good thing for the worker. Like I know a lot of times people knock gig work or side jobs and things like that, but I mean like that's how um so I found out like at some point in life I found out I loved investing, right? And so I was we talked about this, but I subscribed to some Motley Fool services and they had discussion boards, and I was just always asking questions on the discussion boards, like always just like question after question. Like I would like, well, how do you figure out this, or how do you know this, or, and I think I was like very annoying. But there's some people there who like just would patiently explain things time and time again. And then like I just found out I was answering questions. I was still around the same discussion boards. I was just answering questions. And then like they saw that I was, you know, being, very proactive on these boards and like coming up with like, useful posts and things like that. And they asked me if I wanted to try out as writing. And I loved like, so I was a freelance writer for the Motley Fool. And then I became a contract writer, like for some of their services. And now I'm a lead advisor at Seven Investing. But like that was just all started from leaning into some of my passions, and things like that. But I was just saying, like, keep working and just lean into your passions. I don't know, like my wife. So it's interesting though. My wife, like from the time she was in second grade, always wanted to be a teacher. And that's what she is. And that's all she ever wanted to be. So like, if you know it like that, like if you know what your life calling is supposed to be, then do that. And I think for others, you might find your fulfillment away from your full-time job. It could be from your family, and you could be like make a lot of money and give to like charities that mean a lot to you. I mean, there's lots of ways to find fulfillment out there. So I would say like, but like just all I would say is like just keep working and lean into your passions.
Kind of lean into your passion, and would you say kind of chase the happiness rather than chasing the money of it?
I would say chase. I, I would just tweak it a little bit. I would say like maybe chase the fulfillment than chase the happiness, because sometimes that could be like, I guess it depends how you define happiness, but like I would just say like, yeah, like I think those can be different things. Like, or I guess I just want to say make sure happiness isn't always like pleasure, right? Or pleasurable.
Sure.
Or,
Yeah.
things like that. But like, yeah, I would just say like, yeah, like lean into your something that you get fulfillment out of. Like there's sometimes, but yeah, I think that's right. I think that's basically right.
And like you mentioned, gig work, I think that we live in a time now where, with not even a lot of effort, but being public about what you're doing, whether it be on social media, or there's just like a place or a community for everything now. And like getting plugged in with other people that are already doing the things that you're doing, and starting to like you said, ask questions and start to contribute, add value to people around you that are in the space that you like. And next thing you know, you know you're doing a lot, a lot of people. I really harp on to all of my friends about the value that Twitter has brought me, and that seems such like a silly thing because I would never say that about Facebook or anything else like that. But Twitter is kind of how I met you. I started following you when you're at the Fool, and I have gained so much from just connecting with people of similar interests on there. So yeah, I think being public about what you're interested in, start talking to people. I've sent you several DMs before, not even knowing you, and you have been more than willing to chat with me and help other people. So I think people are more than willing to help you out if you're willing to ask the questions and be genuine.
Right. Yeah, I think that's right. Like I like early on, I like when I first joined the Motley Fool a long time ago as a subscriber, like they had discussion board posts that were just like amazing. Like there's so many people on them, like back in the day. And I think that a lot of that's probably like Twitter's kind of sucked the oxygen out of that room. But yeah, Twitter now is like amazing. Like, all the times, like, look, I don't know all the times I'm DMing people like, with questions still, and it's amazing. Like you said, like just reaching out, and a lot of people have been very helpful to me. So, that goes both ways, like just DMing you, Brock, right? Like, I mean, like that's been beneficial to me too. So, but yeah, I think like, but anything, like it just wherever that's found, like whether it's Twitter or if there's like community groups like online, or, like my wife and I find a lot of fulfillment going to church. Like I find a lot of fulfillment for my faith, things like that. But like, yeah, just like wherever you find fulfillment in life, lean into that, and I think that's the best way I can put it.
I think that's good. I think that's good advice. Speaking to your time investing and kind of getting into the financial services space as kind of a side gig, for you to the detective thing. What has been the most or the biggest learning experience that you've kind of undergone, or a way that your thinking has changed as you developed as an investor and working at these services? What's like your biggest takeaway?
So, like I would say, like going so when I was in the Navy, like I already said this, but like in complete, I didn't know anything about finances, like nothing. Um, I would spend money. Money was to be spent. Like that's all I knew. It was like money was something to be spent, and like you would run out of it, and then you had to wait for your next paycheck, right, to spend more. But that's all it was. Like, and so I think like we got married, and my wife was like, well. Like she already knew, but like I don't think she fully grasped like how much of a train wreck I was financially. And she's like, well, we have to save money and do things like that. I was like, why do we need to save money? Like I mean, it was really like,
we're always going to make more.
we're retirement is so far away, things like that. I was just like, well, we'll have kids, but they'll have to go to college like I did. They'll have to go in the Navy or something, like I'm not going to say like, like, I mean, like I just didn't understand. I was a complete idiot really, but like I just didn't understand, like money was meant to be spent. I didn't understand like the whole concept of investing it and growing that money so that you have more for things later in life, or for things just not right now. I guess is a better way to put it. Like, we were in an apartment, we had to save for a house, things like that. So she just introduced me like very early on to Dave Ramsey. And like that's like, if you know nothing about money like I did at that time, Ramsey's great. There's a lot of things like now, like I look back on like some of the things Ramsey said and I don't agree with necessarily. I'll just put it like that. But like when you're an idiot and you don't know what to do with money, I think like something like that was just like, it was a very like basic thing. Like you have to budget and you have to save, and then you invest, and then the compound interest, like just like exploded my mind. Like the first time I understood like what compound interest was, and how amazing that was. And so just like how these things, like you can accomplish so much more. Like money's a tool, I guess is now how I look at it. Like how I used to just think money was meant to be spent, I think now money's a tool in life. And so it's not the most important thing, but if you have this really important tool, that you can accomplish a lot of things in life. And like that can be like saving, investing money for my kids so they can go to college. And obviously if they want to join the armed forces, or if they need like that kind of direction or discipline in life, I'll have that talk with them. But like they don't have to join the armed forces just to go to college, or to one day retire, or to save for a house, and then to hopefully to give money away, right? To like, we all have those causes in life that mean a lot. It would be great to like to give more money towards those things. And so to understand money as a tool, better than just something that was like you just spend money to buy whatever. Like that was like the light bulb moment, I guess.
Yeah, I think I can attest to that. That I have similar feelings about the Dave Ramsey's information and books and stuff, but I think it was about 2 years before I was getting out, and I realized that I had virtually nothing financially to show for the time that I had been in. Hadn't saved anything, had a big pile of debt, had a car payment, had all this stuff. And somehow I ended up getting a hold of his book. And by the time I set the goals and I said, I'm going to pay off all my debt and pay off my car by the time I get out. And I did. And his stuff works. I think that there's some really good
It's
basic principles there
100%.
about
100%.
not spending more than you earn. And
if you need a good place to start, it's such a good place to start. And I needed it. I needed it bad. So it was very good.
I think that anybody in the coming up in the middle class at some point who's ever tried to get their finances straight has turned towards that program, the Dave Ramsey program. So I know my wife and I have looked into it, and yeah, I think it's everybody kind of goes to it at one point or another.
Why don't you talk a little bit about what you do at Seven Investing? What I'd like to, you briefly touched on your time at the Motley Fool. You spun up or joined Seven Investing in March of 2020, this last year, with Simon. Why don't you talk about a little bit about the history of what you guys do, where you came from, the value that you guys are creating. I've been able to kind of watch and be a part of that, which has been really great. And I think the service you guys offer is really, really fantastic. You want to kind of dive into that and share?
Yeah. Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Brock. Yeah. So like it's a service like for, so, like, so coming from where I did and just kind of sharing like my history with money, I guess, like something I really care about is like the common man, right? Or lack of a better term, just like the regular Joe and like his finances. And one way, I think we help with that at Seven Investing is to offer a service where like we can offer like recommendations for stocks to buy and like how you can set up retirement accounts or regular brokerage accounts and how you can accomplish these goals by investing money and like, look, this is what I'll say. Like there's some people who like as soon as you bring up money, like their brain just turns off and they think it's like the most boring thing ever. And if that's you and you have no interest at all, then I would just say yes, go put money in a retirement account in an index fund and just don't think about it again. If you just do that. But like if there's a little bit of interest there, and I believe you can do better than that. And by putting in a little effort and if there's a little interest there to spark that effort, and again, not a lot, like well, hopefully we provide most of that for you. But like I think you can get better returns than you could in an index fund. And so we recommend like every month we come out with new stock recommendations and like, other market commentary and things like that. But we just focus on the long term. They're not trades. We're not day trading or anything like that. We just want to find great companies that you can identify. And by buying shares of them, you're buying, a piece of that great business. And that as that business grows over time, your wealth will with it. And hopefully that's what we accomplish.
Yeah, I really think that you guys do that. And maybe I'm a little bit biased because I am a subscriber and follow all your guys' content. And you guys have a couple podcasts, right?
Yes, we do. So yeah, if you're on your favorite podcast player, you can look for Seven Investing and you'll see the content we put out. And you can go to seveninvesting.com too and subscribe. We also have free content too. So definitely just visit the site and poke around. And I do believe like we offer an affordable, valuable service that most, like middle-class Americans can, or just the middle class in general can really get a lot out of it.
Yeah, we'll be sure to link to the service and the podcast in the show notes. And yeah, I think that, like you said, money is a really kind of a daunting subject for a lot of people. And you said the brains turn off when they hear it. And it's like, oh, if I just ignore it, it won't be there. But that second level thinking of looking for your retirement and thinking ahead, delaying the gratification of right now and looking for something greater in the future is a really powerful subject. Something I really wish I had paid more attention to while I was in the Navy. They have the command financial specialist come talk to you. Hey, you need to, here's your 401k, here's your TSP, here's all of your things. And I actually am a little personal backstory, I guess. I'm very thankful that I did that. My last year that I was in the Navy, a guy that I worked with had the Intelligent Investor, and he handed it to me and told me to read it. And it was like way over my head, no financial knowledge whatsoever. But I kind of got something from it and ended up opening a brokerage account. And I actually rolled my Navy 401k over into like my own personal account and started investing that. And that's how I ended up finding the Motley Fool and subsequently you. So
Awesome.
I think that all of the tools are out there.
Like so you said, your first investment book was The Intelligent Investor?
Yes.
That's amazing.
It is a very very, very heavy book.
If you're listening and want to know more about investing, don't start with that book.
Well, and that's kind of what I was gonna ask. So with Seven Investment, that's kind of like a good place where you can go for somebody who doesn't know anything about investing or money. That's like a good starting point, correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like this is for people like hopefully, like I said, we're doing the heavy work for you, the heavy lifting for you. Like we're providing the research on the stocks, and you can go in deep into that. We usually like our recommendations come with like about a 2,000 word report coming with it, like why we're recommending it. And you can read every single word of that and then ask us follow-up questions, or you can just look at the recommendations, I think a lot of people just just kind of browse through them, so to speak. But yeah, absolutely. Like I think it's great for like people, like I said, If you just can't even bear the thought of money or investing, but you have to do something, but you don't want to do anything more than that, like set up a 401k, or contribute to the 401k at work, or set up an IRA, if your workplace doesn't offer a 401, and just put it in an index fund, and that's at least do that. But I do believe, like with all my heart, like I've done it, like you can do better than that. And if there's just a little interest to spark a little effort on most people's part, like you can get better returns by using a service like us.
Taking control and using Seven Investing. That's cool. It's good to have that service. As somebody like myself, I made the mistake one time of reaching out to Brock, and I was like, dude, I have my 401k at work, and I've I'm gonna start just maxing it out and making sure that I'm doing like the maximum contribution that I can yearly, but like I feel like I can be doing more. And Brock's like, I need to come over to your house. Like, this isn't something that I can just like do over text. And I was like, all right, yeah, like come on over. Like we'll have it.
Did he give you a copy of The Intelligent Investor?
No, like he knows me better than that. He knows it would still be sitting on my desk and I would have never opened it. But yeah, and it really kind of him sitting down, and before I know it, we're talking for like hours about what I assume is probably pretty basic stuff. But it really opened my eyes to this, like how much information there is out there, that growing up middle class, and you're never taught this stuff in school. So I mean, he's just like talking to me about index funds, and okay, like here's this Roth IRA, and here's your 401k and blah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I don't know anything. I thought I was like somewhat smart with my money because I invested in my 401k. So I think that's really, really cool. And it's a great service that you guys offer over at Seven Investing, where you're not overloading somebody. And it seems like it's probably something that it's easy to kind of like go at your own pace.
Yeah. I think that's right. Like hopefully we don't overwhelm people with like too many recommendations, but we're always available. So you can always email us or reach out to us on Twitter, and we're always more than willing to like go over things with you and things like that.
That's cool.
What would you say that just kind of an interest in and taking advantage of the 401k and maybe taking a look at Seven Investing, what other services would you recommend people check out? Maybe if they're maybe in the military, they've got a 401k that they rolled over or something like that. Obviously the news over the last year, everybody's got a Robinhood account these days. Everybody's buying Dogecoin and buying all types of. Tim's shaking his head because I know he owns some.
I do.
To the moon, am I right?
Yo, yeah, diamond hands, baby. Oh gosh, Brock gives me so much crap because I bought $100 worth of Dogecoin just see what happens. And I told him when I'm a billionaire in 10 years, he can then apologize to me.
Yeah. No, I think there's a lot of great free resources out there now. Like if you just like I said, I mean, we have plenty of free resources at 7investing.com. There's a million other websites. I would say the main thing you really need to take away is like invest for the long term. Like, don't get caught up in like anytime people are talking to you about like really quick trades or day trading or flipping this for that or looking at charts, like that's not that you're jumping in the deep end of the pool where there's honestly there's not a lot of money to be made. I mean, like your money's going to be going to commissions and taxes and things like that, besides just the daily randomness of the market. What you want to do though is like find like investments that you can invest in for the long term and not worry too much about the day to day or anything short term. So like any kind of resources you find that point you towards like good long-term investing is what you want to do.
Yeah, I think that taking that approach of 5-10 years, you start thinking in that kind of time sequence, and things, the day-to-day noise of maybe either financial markets or even just general life noise kind of starts to quiet down a little bit. You're able to kind of think a little bit more clearly and look for something that's in the future and much better than what you can do in day-to-day things. If somebody was interested in like pursuing a career, like either as a detective, maybe for your knowledge of, I know you're not like a banker or anything like that, but you've obviously got a lot of time working in the financial services space. If somebody was interested in either of those things, what kind of advice or input would you offer to somebody, again, maybe looking to get out of the service and become a detective or something similar?
I would say like as far as law enforcement goes, like my department, like I mean, there's a million departments out there, but they generally really like military service, right? So I mean, as do almost all workplaces, really. But like as far as law enforcement goes, like they loved that I had military service and with an honorable discharge, and then it was like I think I just needed an associate's degree to get hired as an officer because I had the military service. But if you didn't have the military service, you needed like a bachelor's and criminal justice or something like that. But like the military service counted for a lot with my department and most departments. Like as far as like anything financial, like I would just say one, like just you probably need, it depends, I guess, what you exactly want to do, but like, there's lots of certifications you can get that I guess really depends what you want to do. But there's like you can become a certified financial planner, if you just want to help people like make smart financial decisions. And there's things like the CFA designation, which you can get if you want to be like a stock analyst. So there's lots of different ways to go in that. But like if you're more interested in stocks in the market and things like that, I would say like you want to get public with your picks and establish some kind of track record. You can do that on, these days you can do that like by starting a blog or just being on Twitter or things like that. I mean, there's a million ways to kind of to start participating with things like that.
And that kind of, I think, goes back to what I was talking about earlier, just being public. Kind of there's a lot of people on Twitter that have blogs and recommendations and looking to connect and teach other people. So getting out there and getting plugged in with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have anything else? Any other cool stories we need to know about? Any captain's mass? Any huge financial mistakes we need to know about?
No, I like like I think that's the majority of it. No captain's mass. I didn't rock the boat, no pun intended, too much during my time in the service. Yeah, like the only thing I'll say is like it really took me like it just made everything was just so much easier after my time in the Navy. Like it was just like I needed discipline in my life, and I didn't even know what that is, what that was. Like I just needed that like internal like self-discipline. Like, okay, like you're in college now, you have to study for this test. Well, that's easy. Like nobody's making you like stand an extra watch on the ship from like midnight to 4 a.m. tonight. So, it's easy to go study and then you still have time for a beer later, instead of,
right.
But like everything was just a lot easier after my time in the service.
It's funny how that works out. Everything seems not quite as hard afterwards.
Right.
What, I guess a couple final questions here. What advice would you give to somebody that's in the service now? Any kind of general military advice, and then what would you give to somebody that's outside or looking to get out or exit soon?
I think to someone that's in the service, take advantage, man, of like like I know they offer college classes on bases and on ships and things like that. Take advantage of that stuff. Like I was an idiot and like half-assed my way through a lot of that stuff when I was in. So take advantage of that stuff. And if you're getting out, take advantage of their programs too. Like I think it was called TARP, the Transition Assistance Retirement Program, something like that when I got out. And, just gave me a lot of great, like how to write a resume and how to do a job interview and what kind of like, if you have this designation, what kind of jobs you might be interested in the civilian field. And some people who I was getting out with didn't even go. You know what I mean? It was like a day class on a Saturday or something like that, and they didn't even go. So take advantage of all those things the military offers, as far as that goes. And, I think, there's some good resources in the military that I wish I had taken better advantage of when I was in.
Yeah, I think that, what is it called? TAPS?
TAPS. Yeah. I was trying to think of what the term was. Yeah. TAPS. Yep. And now I think, at least for me, it was like a 2 or 3 day class. And I think I remember taking taps, and the most eye-opening thing for me was when they were talking about, okay, how do you like how much money are you going to need to make to be equivalent? And we were like doing the math, and they're like, okay, for me it was like, okay, you need to get a job that was X amount, and I was like, oh crap, like I can't do that, but so yeah, no, that taps is definitely, it's there's some fluff in there that I think is just kind of that they waste their time with, but it is absolutely good information. So that's great advice.
Cool. Well, we really appreciate you coming on the show today, Matt. Where can people go to follow along with you? You already dropped the 7 investing thing, and we'll have that in the show notes. Anywhere else people can follow along with you or reach out to you, assuming you want that?
No, anytime. I'm very available, and I'm pretty much always on Twitter. So you can find me at Matt_Cochrane7. And I'm on there way too much. So if you reach out to me on Twitter, I'm sure I'll get back to you soon.
That's how I reached out to you, and you do respond very, very quickly. So.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Matt, and we'll have to have you on the show again soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Take care. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Your listenership helps me better educate people like you and the rest of our nation's military, both past and present, on building a successful life outside of military service. If you're looking for more ways the top vets are leading more effective lifestyles, building businesses, and using the resources designed specifically for you, press here for a selection of some of the best clips. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date, and I will be talking with you soon.